Joining me now to look ahead to it is Chaitanya Kumar, who is Head of Environment at the New Economics Foundation think tank. Good morning.
Morning.
What do you make of these plans, what we've heard from the Prime Minister so far?
I think this is genuinely a big announcement and a positive announcement for the country. Offshore wind, as I like to say it, is the goose that lays the golden egg for the UK. And it's good to see us maxing out on offshore wind. We've initially had plans of setting up about 30 gigawatts of capacity by 2030. We've just added another 10 to be added in the next 10 years. So it's humongous capacity for offshore wind. And I suppose the PM's right in terms of the fact that it does create a lot of jobs, especially in parts of the economy that have been severely hit 10 years ago through the economic crash.
And there has been a lot of talk about coming out of the other side of the coronavirus crisis and really responding to a huge shift in the economy by ploughing investment into green investment particularly.
That's right. But we ought to be slightly careful, though, because this announcement isn't new. This was made in the Conservative manifesto back in December 2019. And the 160 million that is going to be announced by the PM is small, but we need to still see the details of that. Because one of the things we look at the New Economics Foundation is the supply chain for these industries. What's worrying is still, even today, a lot of what are called foundations for these offshore wind turbines actually get made in Indonesia and then get imported to the UK, when we actually have the capacity domestically in places like the Humber to be making these turbines and turbine jackets. So we'll have to wait and see if this 160 million actually helps create the manufacturing base we need in the UK, in the Humber, to support our own offshore industry, as opposed to relying on foreign economies.
And wind power technology has made huge strides. I think perhaps in the past it has had a bit of a bad press and has caused some controversy, but costs have come down a huge way and the technology has got a lot better.
Yes. I mean, if you look at Twitter, the quip that a lot of people are making is it was Boris Johnson who, back in 2013, wrote a piece saying, basically just disparaging offshore wind as a technology that has no future. And fast forward 7 years, he's making a major speech where he's extolling the wonders of offshore wind. So times have certainly changed. The technology has evolved tremendously. We're building turbines the size of the Eiffel Tower off the coast of North Sea. This scale and this pace of change is remarkable, and we're only set to see this grow. I suppose one thing worth reflecting on is while we are investing heavily in offshore wind, one of the cheapest technologies we've got, which is clean, is actually onshore wind that is on the shores of the UK. And we've actually cut the legs of the onshore wind industry over the last 5 years. So if you really want genuine, clean, guilt-free electricity, as the PM likes to call it, we need to support both onshore wind and not just offshore wind.
I think the other thing we've seen is the private sector increasingly turning to renewables because they can make money there. So where should this government investment be spent?
Supply chains, making sure that the majority of the infrastructure, majority of the components that go into the wind sector, the wind industry, are actually made in the UK. And if we support further in terms of things like export credit, for example, then we actually have the potential to export some of these to different parts of the world. Because, wind is a growing sector in the US, for example. It's massive potential there. It is growing off the coast in Europe, in India. It's a growing sector, and we are poised to actually be a massive export industry if only we can invest in the right areas.
And the overarching aim here, of course, is net zero by, in the next, I forget exactly when the target is now, but the 2030s, the 2040s, and lots of countries working towards that goal.
Yeah, we've got a target of 2050. We've been making the case that it's a bit too late and we can achieve it earlier. But the way things are going, this offshore wind announcement is just one sign of how quickly things can change through innovation, through investment. But net zero is very much on our side.
And from your point of view, encouraging to see a public appetite for steps forward in climate policy.
Absolutely. I suppose the interesting thing is offshore wind is out of sight in a lot of ways, and therefore for a lot of people it's out of mind. The kind of changes we need to see to hit net zero will now need to actually happen in our homes. So be it the way we travel, be it the way we eat, be it the way we use our heat in our homes. I think that's where the real challenge is now, and it'll be interesting to see what policy steps the government takes.